Yo guys, what is up? Mike's in our first Descendant video, and today we got the biggest patch that we've gotten in the history of the first Descendant. This is our first big content patch that adds new Descendants, Ultimate Valby, a new boss fight, new ultimate weapons, rebalancing and buffs, and a whole lot of other things. In this video, we're going to break down everything that you need to know. Hope you guys enjoy the video. Let's get right into it. Quick shameless plug, I will be live all day grinding out the new guns, the new Descendants, their Transcendent modules, beating the new boss, and everything else. If you have any questions about the patch or want to just drop by to hang out, check out twitch.tv/Moxie. So to start us off, we've got Ultimate Valby. She is looking awesome. She's got two new Ultimate Modification modules, Spiral Tidal Wave, which replaces her 4 with like a straight line shot instead of like a big blob, and her Hydro Pressure Bomb, which allows her to do a lot more damage with her 2 ability if she's jumping into an area that she's already applied her Laundry State to. Next up, they're adding Ultimate Valby Amorphous Materials. Basically, they're replacing current amorphous materials with these new AA variants that are going to be including Ultimate Valby's parts. And they can be acquired in the same place as the original. Seems like this is the method that they're going to be using to update new Descendants and add new things instead of just kind of like updating existing amorphous materials. So I think that's pretty cool. Next up, we've got Luna, who is the new Descendant. We also get a description of all of her skills. So Luna's passive is called Improvisation. She using any skills increases her inspiration gauge, which allows Luna to use enhanced skills. So similar to like Ajax, who has a custom resource, she's got a custom resource as well that will allow her to like power up her abilities. Her first skill is called Stage Presence, which whips out her unique weapon. And then if you perform the notes in time with the music by using skills or hitting monsters with your unique weapon, you're going to increase her skill power modifier and increase her gauge. Passionate Stage is her second ability. Using skills makes Luna play upbeat music, increasing the skill power modifier of Luna and her allies. Gaining the enhanced effect increases the skill power modifier even more, and also increases skill critical hit rate and damage of allies. Her third ability is called Relaxing Act. Using the skill makes Luna play relaxing music. Hitting the enemies with a note grants an effect that instantly recovers the MP of Luna and her allies. Gaining the enhanced effect increases MP recovery and reduces skill cost. And her fourth final ability is called Delightful Stage. Using a skill makes Luna play delightful music. Hitting the enemy with a note increases your inspiration gauge and decreases the skill cooldown of allies. Gaining the enhanced effect increases the inspiration gauge even more and immediately resets the cooldown of allies. So Luna seems like the skill support character, where like Enzo's the ammo support and Eugen is the health support. Luna's going to be the skill support. The fact that she can instantly reset passives of your teammates means that you could like come in with 3 Lepics and have all of your Lepics use their ultimate, do as much damage for the boss as possible. Luna hits her 4th and then resets the cooldown of all of the Lepics, who are going to be getting increased damage and like crit chance on their abilities if Luna's playing right. So she sounds kind of insane. She's got 2 modules coming out with her as well. The Nimble Footsteps, which amplifies her movement speed and the range of her performance, and Noise Surge, which transforms all of her skills to combat skills. Performing the notes in rhythm unleashes a powerful AoE attack. When the inspiration gauge is full, summons a moving stage where she dances to recover MP and shield. I planned to mess around with this a lot because it sounds really, really cool. Luna's also got the AA variants of her amorphous materials. Next up, we've got the new hard mode Void Intercept Gluttony. Gluttony is looking crazy. He's got the new Hungry Sonic external component set and blueprints of the ultimate weapon Peacemaker. If we go to the in-game, you can see that basically every boss's level goes up by 4. So Executioner 106, 110, 114. Gluttony is a jump from 130 all the way to 140. I haven't fought him yet. I'm going to be doing that after this video is done recording. But apparently he's really hard and just like one-tapping people with like 10k HP and 30k defense. So I can't wait to try him out. He's got a new external component set that if you get the 4-piece bonus, it's going to grant you MP recovery on hitting targets with your unique weapon, as well as an effect that increases your skill duration and MP heal modifier proportional to max MP. So he sounds like he could be also pretty perfect for Lepic 4 ability spam. Next up, we've got the new ultimate weapon Peacemaker. It's got a ability when if you use a dimension skill, you grant the single reload for peace effect At maximum stacks, the single reload for piece effect enables you to fire the loaded ammo in a single quick burst when taking an aim shot. Sounds pretty cool. Obviously synergized with dimension-based Descendants. Valby's got some cool dimension skills. Ajax, Blair. Should be interesting to mess around with. Next up, we've got a new module that's kind of a like support / defense module, Arc Concretion. It's going to decrease your movement speed and gun damage and all your attribute attack, except for non-attribute attack. And every time you're using a skill, you're going to be stacking up Arc Concretion, which increases your defense and MP. Could be nice for like an Ajax build or a like very defense-focused support character where you're not really caring too much about your own damage, but you're going to be constantly keeping yourself alive and giving yourself tons of mana. Next up, they added some new cosmetics to the shop, which are basically these. There's some more for the specific Descendants, but they added a like summer theme like skins for everyone. You can get some Hawaiian shirts or swimsuits. Next up, we've got content improvements. There's a lot of changes here. I'm not going to be reading out all of them, just kind of highlighting the major ones. They added a option to turn camera shake on and off. I noticed a bunch of camera shake while playing Blair with his flamethrower ability, so that's a really nice change. They also added the ability to collect all lost and found items at once in the mailbox. That's really nice because it was constantly filling up. And they also made a change that you cannot change your modules once you're in a like void intercept. This was basically made to prevent the whole like module swap exploit that you could do with Glay. You could do it with like Enzo and some other Descendants. But basically, once you're going into a boss fight, you're going to want to make sure that you're entering the boss fight with your appropriate build. Next up, we've got Descendant modules. This is where we're getting some real buffs. They increased the poison contagion range of Freyna's Room Zero Trauma from 4-meter radius to 7-meter radius. That is amazing. Freyda's going to be doing some big AoE poison damage. They increased the maximum scaling range of Valby's skills from 200 to 250%, and the maximum scaling range of Blair's skills from 200 to 250%. They changed the blizzard generated by VS's Glacial Cloud module to be triggered instantly without delay. That's another quality of life thing. They changed the Valby's Albion Academy Cadet head skin to be dyeable. I don't know why that's in the Descendant modules, but go ahead. And then they changed the incoming final damage to incoming damage modifier in the description of safe recovery. So these seem to be the like Descendant buffs. I think the real buff here is for Freyna because this is straight up increasing the radius at base of her Room Zero Trauma, which is really nice. The other ones are going to be increasing the maximum scaling range of Valby and Blair. This is really nice, but only if you were scaling this much range. If you weren't scaling this much range in the first place, you're not going to really notice a change. But now, if you do want to scale an absurd amount of range, you can do that. I was kind of hoping for more base changes to these Descendants and their range things, kind of like what they did for Freyna, but that is a really, really nice quality of life change for Freyna. Next up, we get some gun buffs. They added a feature in your game options that enables some single shot weapons and burst weapons to fire automatically when the fire button is pressed and held down. Things like burst rifles, where you kind of had to click each time, you can now have a setting to just hold down the trigger and fire them. Next up, they buffed the Enduring Legacy's critical hit damage from 1.7 to 2.3x. This is a pretty insane change because the Enduring Legacy was already pretty good. I will have a video out for that hopefully today on my build that I've been using on it. They buffed the Secret Garden's critical hit rate from 35 to 50% and its crit hit damage from 1.85 to 2.25x. This is an awesome change. I thought the Secret Garden was basically a weapon just to hold for its buffs and not really to shoot, but with these changes, it might actually be a pretty damn good weapon. Then they increased the Nizastra's Devotion critical hit rate from 36 to 45% at base, and its critical damage from 2x to 2.5x. I have a Nizastra's build that is already critting like almost every shot, so this base change to crit is going to be ridiculous. Next up, they decreased the trigger rate of Greg's Reversed Fate, and it now also triggers when the weapon is fired on unshielded enemies. This should be a really solid option for ad clear now, besides the like Thunder Cage, because you're constantly going to be triggering its unique effect, which is really, really nice. Next up, they increased the amount of void shards that can be acquired from special operations by 7 times. And they have a little director's comment about this. They said hotfix 1.04 added void shards as a reward to special operations, but unfortunately there was just too few. The original intent was to keep void fragments as the primary farming source for void shards and get additional void shards from special operations, but the community has told us that many of you don't like this loop, so we've increased the amount of void shards that can be earned in special operations. We're also working on some steps for future improvements. Many players are currently farming materials without spending the fragments at the fusion reactor, so we're considering removing fragments from the fusion reactor startup altogether. This would make the fragments necessary only when the reconstructing device is used at the fusion reactor. We're taking a close look at how the reward loop we planned works in practice. We'll try to finalize a reward loop that players will be satisfied with in the near future. So now, if you're doing special operations, you're getting 7 times the void shards as before, which is a great change because the void shards were like pretty much like negligent. You didn't really earn any at all before, so now you're getting 7 times as many. Just another fantastic change by the devs. Next up, they reduced the distance you're knocked down when you're hit by a trap, but the big change here is that they lowered the ratio at which named monsters' immunity sphere HP scales with the number of players in infiltration operations and reduced the duration of immunity. This is a great change. Basically, those orbs will be a lot easier to pop, and they'll be easier to pop when you're playing with other players instead of them having like a ton of HP and slowing down the fights a lot. Next up, we've got some bug fixes for Descendants. There is a lot here. I'm not going to read out all of them. One of the biggest ones is the like ultimate bunny bug. So basically, if you casted your 3 on ultimate bunny, it would snapshot at the amount of electricity you had and wouldn't like increase its damage as you were running around, apparently. And so now, instead of it like being determined by the amount of electricity that you had when you cast it, if you're running around, it'll actually start scaling its damage up and up. So now it'll depend on the amount of electricity you currently have, which is a great change. Next up, there's an equipment bug fix, which has to do with the Thunder Cage. They say that there was an issue where the Ultimate Weapons Thunder Cage unique effect would deal more than 1.3xx damage when monsters were clustered. Instead, Electric Shockwave now deals 2 times damage regardless of the number of enemies. During internal testing, we discovered a bug with Thunder Cage. Thunder Cage should always deal 1.33x times damage according to its description, but was dealing more than that damage when there were a lot of monsters. We fixed this bug, but we also boosted the 1.3xx damage to 2x so that it doesn't become less efficient when hunting. We're well aware that the value of items you own is important to you. To ensure that fixing the bug doesn't devalue your items, we're giving it more power than we originally intended. If something like this happens again in the future, we won't stop at simply fixing the bug, but we consider how we preserve the value of your items to provide a reasonable patch. Another great change. I made a video on the Thunder Cage hitting like almost 3 million damage on its explosions, which was kind of crazy. I guess that was not intended. So now it's going to be hitting less, but it's more than the original value. So I really like this dev note. Thunder Cage should still probably be fantastic, but you're not going to see those like crazy damage numbers when there's a lot of grouped enemies. There's a few other like minor notes here. I'm not going to read through everything, but I will leave the link down to the notes in the description if you want to check them out. I do want to read the director's comment because they have some big plans for upcoming contents. They say that the team is currently working on Season 1 and Season 2 updates while also responding to improvement issues discovered during the live service. Today, I'm going to talk about how we plan to improve the current state of the First Descendant rather than about Season 1 and 2 updates. Drop rate improvement plans. While all of our drop rate systems are operating fairly in the First Descendant, we do understand that some players are struggling with the vagaries of drop rates. To address this, we're planning to introduce a new system where you can more easily get the item you want after repeating the activity a certain number of times. The First Descendant has various missions and amorphous materials with chance-dependent rewards. We're considering how we can effectively take care for the drop rate issue in such diverse reward systems, and we're working to create a farming structure that players will be happy with. We hope to make improvements before long to provide a more rational and satisfying farming experience. Good stuff there. Sounds like they are aware of some of the frustrations with drop rates and planning on improving them. Next up, disposing of leftover items. Next is an update on items that are piling up in your consumables. There's currently no way to dispose blueprints for Descendants and weapons that you've already completed, so there are cases where players are getting multiple copies of blueprints they already own during the farming process. We've been listening to the community, who have told us that there needs to be a way to dispose of these unwanted items. While we could consider simply converting them into gold or kuiper, we want to reward you with more value for the time you've put into the game. To resolve this, the dev team is planning a system to dismantle leftover items to get byproducts, and a rotating shop system where you can exchange the byproducts for something of value. This will allow the items you obtain to have greater value in the game. That is fantastic. I made a whole kind of video rant talking about all these leftover items that we were getting, and it looks like they've come up with a solution to them, which is really, really awesome. Potentially a rotating shop where maybe you could buy some things to help improve your drop rates, like stabilizers. Maybe it'll be something else, but I really like that change. So very cool. Next up, they've got something for supporting build diversity. It's a lot of fun for us to see the variety of builds being posted in the community lately. We love seeing you try so many different builds and are amazed by the unexpected ways you've evolved them. We hope for more builds to exist in the first Descendant, and we want an environment where players are free to experiment with different builds. However, we found that it's difficult to take advantage of loadouts after assigning socket types, which goes against our goal of experimenting with different builds freely. As a result, the dev team is planning to provide an environment where completely different builds can be created by assigning each loadout with different socket types. We hope this will help you experiment with different builds without feeling overwhelmed. That is another fantastic change. One of my biggest frustrations with this game right now is if I want to make a really efficient AoE damage build on Freyna, I am sacrificing a lot of my bossing damage setup. Because, for example, my bossing damage setup, I'd want like 4 crit mods. I just don't need 4 crit mods for mobbing. So I'd be wasting all those slots for like a mobbing build. And you have to kind of decide what you want on each character. So the fact that they are already very aware of this and plan to make it so that you can assign different socket types for each loadout or your like tabs at the top is going to be amazing. It'll be allowing us to like min-max mobbing builds and bossing builds at the same time. I'm hoping to see that change as soon as possible. And lastly, around balancing, finally, we have some news about balancing. We are seeing a dominance of the skill damage focused builds found on some Descendants. Descendants and weapons that are well suited for these builds are quite popular now. We want the meta builds to change from season to season. We want the Descendants and weapons that are effective in new content to be different from those in previous seasons. Also, we're looking to increase the proportion of firearm-based combat in the endgame. We can't promise that all Descendants and weapons will be equally balanced at all times, but our goal is to keep changing the effective builds. To that end, we promise to make constant adjustments and offer different ways to play with new content. We aim to implement the improvements I talked about today during seasons 1 and 2. So these changes could be coming as soon as season 1, which is the end of this coming month, or the end of next month. Your feedback means a lot to the dev team. We plan to provide a better experience as we build the game together. W devs. Guys, that is going to do it for the patch notes video. A ton of changes here. I'm just kind of thrilled with not only the things that they're adding to the game, but also the things that they plan on adding to the game and the way that they are going about it. It does sound like we are going to be getting nerfs to some of the meta stuff, but the approach that they've been going about these things is pretty respectful for the amount of time and like energy and even money that we're putting into some of these weapons and Descendants. The fact that they're aware of the build diversity problems, the drop rates, and like all the leftover items is all really good stuff. And I cannot wait for the future of this game. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I will catch you on the next one. Take care. Peace.